What's up guys, Houndish here, today jumping in with another Destiny 2 video. Of course, this week started off kinda weird with the extended downtime, but things are now fixed and Arms Week is in full swing, although there is one broken component of that event. We'll talk about it, plus Bungie have added a bunch of new rewards and things to the database for upcoming events that include some hidden weapons, cosmetics and more. There's also an indication they may cycle some of the Crimson Days loot back into the rotation for Valentine's Day. So we'll round up all of that, as well as yet more discussion about the roadmap, potential minor revelations on that front, and additionally there's word from ex-Bungie employees about what it's like to actually develop at the studio, some of the pressure that Bungie are under, and we have some of the news items today as well. So if you guys enjoy the video, a rating would really help us out, but now let's get into it. Starting out today, some non-Destiny news. Of course, Highguard came out this week. This was a game that a lot of players were kind of curious about because of the way it was actually announced. And basically, it was only previewed at the Game Awards, and otherwise had almost no marketing. This week, though, the game came out, and reviews have been incredibly mixed. Keep in mind, this is a free-to-play game, although it's heavily monetized. It had an initial boom with a decent amount of players, but in less than 24 hours time, it dropped from just shy of 100,000 players at peak, down to 11,000 players, which is pretty bonkers really. That's only 3,000 more players than Destiny 2 has, albeit I did look at these numbers early in the morning, so not the best representation, but for a brand new title, clearly it's going to be a bit of a struggle. Although, you do have to give Highguard some points for not being a typical arena shooter or extraction mode or something like that. Despite its flaws, the concept is at least a little bit different. There's been some other interesting dramas around it as well. Dr. Disrespect shared that he apparently got to play the game early. The crazy part is though, reportedly the creator manager for Highguard responded and confirmed that Dr. Disrespect was not invited to any Highguard event. Why would you make up a fake early preview badge for something? That's wild. Anyway, share your thoughts on Highguard if you've managed to play it down in the comment section. Oh yeah, another thing, folks got really grumpy with Jeff Keighley because he'd kind of hyped the game up at the Game Awards. And now loads of people are asking for an apology, which is pretty bonkers. We should all keep in mind that Jeff Keighley is just a hype man. That's basically all he does. On to Destiny news, or at least the conversation first. This is being mirrored in the community. Mactic said, I hope Bungie aren't waiting until Marathon's launch to drop the Destiny roadmap and state of the game that they promised months ago. I get that Marathon is the focus right now, and understandably so, but I can't blame the community for feeling like Destiny has been abandoned. And of course, we shouldn't necessarily assume that Destiny has been abandoned. We do, however, see this on a repeat cadence, really, as soon as Bungie stop talking about the game for an extended period of time, or if they make a promise that they don't keep, like the roadmap, at least up until this point in time. That tends to further breed this kind of negative sentiment and speculation because players don't have any actual solid info to go on. And obviously it's a problem that will not get better until Bungie actually have something to say about it. And they should say something about it because, as Mactix points out, they did actually promise this, so it's not an invention that the community have come up with, right? Although Paul Tassi said they aren't gonna leave the Destiny roadmap until after Marathon, so either Paul Tassi knows something, which seems possible given that he was the one that hinted at this Shadow and Order delay in the first instance. Or maybe it's the simple logic that the fact that they have to actually delay Shadow and Order officially and make that announcement means that presumably they'll address this roadmap situation when they indeed do that. So we'll have to hope it's soon, right? Because this thing is meant to be coming out in a month. Man, I'm right there with you guys when it comes to frustration. On to the content updates this week. Firstly, in case you missed it, Zavala is selling Peculiar Charm. That's an aggressive burst Crucible SMG, which actually I believe is a comp weapon, so I'm not sure why it's in these pools. It may have been miscategorized, but at the moment we can grab an Attrition Orb's Kinetic Tremors roll of this SMG, which is pretty juicy. That appears to be pretty much the most popular version, but it has other rolls as well, so be sure to check in and take a look at those. For Arms Week updates though, Bungie have said we're investigating an issue where Ada 1 isn't accepting combat telemetry currently, and more information will be provided when available. Basically, it appears that there are 3 different versions of combat telemetry, one that's been produced for each of the Arms Week events so far. Ada 1 requires us to give her the newest version, but activities are actually dropping an old version. That's basically what's happening, so Ada won't accept it, which is a bit frustrating for some reward acquisition, but of course there are a few sources for the Arms Week weapons. Let us know if you've picked up any juicy ones yet, and I'll keep you posted when Bungie give us any further updates. Separately, in the database this week, there are actually a bunch of items added for upcoming events. A lot of it seems to be linked to Guardian Games, which is coming in March, although there are some other items as well. So, firstly, they added the armor sets, which are currently not actually visible, but they include the Claw, Talon, and Venom Unrivaled sets. And then there are also some classified weapons. So the Kera Unos, if I'm saying that right, that's returning from last year. That was the trace rifle for Guardian Games. There's also a new hand cannon though, called Triple Laureate. and that's the status aggressive frame. Again, we don't have the icons for them, so they've currently got placeholders. But the other one is the beacon, and that's a solar fusion rifle. I believe it's going to be a rapid fire frame, and with Guardian Games technically being one of the more major events versus something like heavy metal, of course we're not surprised to see new weapons added to it, so look forward to seeing more of that. They added additional items associated with the event, like the Catamaran Jubilant, a new exotic ship. A lot of them are Eververse items. Some interesting emblems though, such as Animal Instinct, as we can see here. Quite a nice looking one, obviously linked to Guardian Games, as well as Clutch Play. On top of that, there's an update to Take the Mantle. That was the emblem that Bungie created for the Oath of the Renegades event. And when that was completed, basically, it entitles everyone in the community to this emblem. So at some point, Bungie will unlock it for us all. But other mysterious emblems include things like Victory Condition. This is actually a pretty cool one. We can see there's a picture of the Traveler, the Tower, and the Pyramids. So referencing some of D2's history there, although we don't know exactly what it's for. Plus there are others like Cosmic Circuitry and Pinnacle Predators, which based on the shield icon I would assume references Pinnacle Ops. That potentially is a Moments of Triumph related thing, looking at the Roman numerals on the left hand side of that middle icon. So nothing necessarily mind blowing, but importantly, updates for some content that we're going to get as part of events this season. Speaking about some things that'll be coming up in the near future, there's been speculation, could Crimson Days come back to Destiny 2 in some capacity? The main reason for this is that there are a bunch of Crimson Days items currently listed in the Eververse rotation for this season. My assumption is, based on what we can see, no, they are not bringing back Crimson Days itself, but it does look like they'll be bringing back a bunch of the cosmetic things to the Eververse store, probably sometime around Valentine's Day, so that includes things like Heartfelt Union. There are a couple of emotes associated with Crimson Days, as well as exotic items like the Undeterred. The Shot Through the Heart ornament for the Vow is also listed in the store, although I don't think we can actually earn the Vow currently, so maybe Bungie will do something there, reintroduce it somehow, or it's simply a cosmetic that players will be able to pick up if they haven't had it before. Plus there are other things like the Crimson Shell and Crimson Passion and Crimson Valor shaders are in the rotation, so they're going to come up in the store. Like we said, around Valentine's Day is the only thing that seems logical, but as to speculation that some other Crimson Days event components could pop up, yeah, there's no kind of indication of that in the database. And of course, Bungie haven't said anything either, so I would assume, based on form at the moment, that the cosmetics are the only things we're going to get, and yeah, just don't build your hopes up for anything else. Our final mention, though, to reiterate that Joseph Cross, the former Marathon art director, spoke in an interview recently about his experiences actually developing the game at Bungie, and he left the studio back in December after 6 years, and reportedly he chose to leave Bungie, where he said he wants to work on other projects outside of just gaming, but it highlights that while developing Marathon, the team have felt distinct spells where talk around the game was positive at first and then became negative. And speaking to the impact of that on the dev team, he says, "The art is really the most important thing to me here. It's difficult for me to take criticism personally because I believe in the art, because I believe in what we've done. I think we've done something really cool and it will pan out." Although he adds that he had no say over the design or the way that the game actually plays, but he feels good about what he could control and says that you can't take that away from me as much as the haters try online or wherever. And whether someone doesn't happen to like the art direction personally, whether they don't agree with some of the political things that Bungie have done or whatever, despite the animosity, you can't take the thing I care about the most away. And he finally said, "It's easy to forget at times that the team is making a product with a ticking clock that needs to launch into the world and make profound amounts of money. And occasionally that pressure actually hampered creativity because it creates a sense that you can't impose anything that feels like a risk." So literally a recognition there from a Bungie dev that Marathon has to be a big success. But additionally, his wording sort of suggests an actual frustration around the fact that because there is that deadline, it could result in devs not taking as many risks with certain components of the game, and arguably taking carefully thought out risks actually, when trying to do something different, can be the make or break between a good game and a mediocre game, right? Because it's the kind of innovation that tends to push things in a direction that actually creates that appeal. Arguably, Bungie did that with Destiny when it originally came out. Not that it was an entirely unique concept, but lots of things that have been done in different titles in the past, brought together in something that was kind of uniquely Bungie. And that took Bungie many, many years to develop, longer than it's taken Marathon to develop. So it's an interesting point. Sometimes not taking those risks can actually result in a product which is more mid overall. And maybe that reflects in some of the criticism that Marathon's received early from fans since last year. Either way, we're potentially looking at 2 or 3 weeks from now until the beta for Marathon, which is going to be a massive moment, potentially even bigger than the actual launch of the game, because it will inform, of course, whether lots of people actually purchase Marathon. So that's a moment I'm looking forward to, albeit with some degree of anxiety, right? Either way, share your thoughts below. That's it for today. If you've enjoyed the video, a rating would really help us out. Be sure as well to hit subscribe. I'll keep you up to date with everything related to the game, and of course all the stuff going on with Bungie. So keep it locked and loaded, but otherwise thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.